Welcome to Being Reintegrated. My name is Tim Wright, and these are the videos that we're going to start on the Treatise of the Reintegration of Beings. Now, depending on your subscription, I can continue this series. So it's ambitious, I know, but this is going to be a commentary separate from the one being produced on the Treatise of Reintegration of Beings. Now, let me get my book. I'm not going to tell you my version because I don't want to enter into that controversy. But I will tell you that the section is going to just start with the beginning. So, before time, the divine immensity. And what I plan to do is read you a section and then talk about something if it comes up. If not, you'll just hear me talking about the book, and then hopefully we can just have not audio book, but a audio commentary on the Treatise of Reintegration of Beings. And it could stem into other conversation or whatever. I'm not sure how this will go. So it says, before time was, God emanated spiritual beings in his divine immensity for his own glory. These beings had a devotion to fulfill which divinity had determined by laws, precepts, and eternal commands. They were therefore free and distinct from the Creator, and one cannot deny them the free will with which they emanated without destroying the spiritual and personal faculty, property, and virtue necessary for them to operate precisely within the limits in which they had to exercise their powers. It was actually within these limits where these first spiritual beings had to practice the devotion for which they had been emanated. These first beings could not deny nor ignore the covenant which the Creator had made with them in giving them laws, precepts, and commands, since it was upon these covenants alone that their emanation had been based. So, that's a lot of words. And if I were just to read it and barrel through that, we wouldn't understand that the divine immensity is what they're referring to as the eternal. So that's shown in the universal table. Now, I know people are going to criticize these videos and be like, whoa, that's way too ambitious. You shouldn't do so. But I've been researching the Elohim for 20 years, so I probably am going to be the person to do the best commentary thus far. I mean, somebody else can do this. If their videos are better, go ahead. Subscribe to them. I'll subscribe to them if they know what they're talking about. So anyway, enough of that edge going on there. It says that God emanated spiritual beings in his divine immensity. So this is part of the deist argument, I believe it's called, where God is separate from humankind. These spiritual beings are in his divine immensity. I don't like his because, if it's the divine immensity and before time was, there's really no area to go to and say that there's gender. But we'll just leave that for those who are concerned about those matters, because it doesn't really primarily concern me, and that's just my own sensitivity for others. For his own glory. So, for the glory of the divine immensity is why these beings were emanated. So it's not really clearly understood what his own glory is. His glory has been said in, like I said, the Cohen Instructions of Saint Martin is another book that I translated with GPT. And it says that he created beings, their job was to be his glory. So it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's saying that the beings that were created were for their own purpose, which was for glorifying the divine immensity. Not necessarily him in a patriarchal way of throwing up, there's an individual out there, and there's only one individual and there can't be any other individuals, but his glory is his divine immensity. So it begs the question, who is this being who emanated, and what is his glory? So these beings had a devotion to fulfill which divinity had determined by laws, precepts, and eternal commands. So what I've been told through other commentors and heads of the tradition is that eternal laws, precepts, and commands are the three divine spiritual actions, which of course we'll read about in another section of the treatise, but they preview it here for us to get a view of what it is. And I think that's pretty amazing, that we're even going to frame that the beings' job was to fulfill the laws, precepts, and commandments. Now, I at first heard that and was like, oh, we have a dogmatic group that's trying to rule everything and take over everything. And that's not so much the case, as in there's a dogmatism that's trying to rule and take over everything, but it doesn't come from the eternal divine immensity, let's say it that way. They were therefore free and distinct from the Creator. So the beings that are called glory are free and distinct from the Creator. So the ego evaluation of the Creator being just a divine autocrat that's like, hey, I'm going to rule everything and everybody will worship me and I'm narcissistic and nobody will do anything but say my name. That's not the case, because they're separate from the Creator, except for the glory is separate from the Creator. So this goes into an emanation scheme, which shows that all possible homage is a being that is separate from the Creator, but in the divine immensity. I love how Martinez does this, because he says essentially that, yeah, this is a being which you are to give glory to, but this is not me. I didn't. There's this arrogant midrash that goes around saying, I'm the one, not me, but the God is the one that made us because God wants to experience God through our eyes, kind of midrash. But the point is that God wants us to feel like we are in the divine immensity, and the way by we get there is by paying our particular focus and attention to the glory, which is separate from this God that emanates. Pretty amazing the way Martinez set that up. And one cannot deny them the free will with which they emanated without destroying the spiritual and personal faculty, property, and virtue necessary for them to operate precisely within the limits in which they had to exercise their powers. So this is the law, is that you cannot deny them the free will with which you're emanated, without destroying the spiritual and personal. So this isn't a form of Gnostic dualism where, there's a bad part of you and a good part of you, and the job is to get rid of the bad part, so the good part, which is your only part, will be you. That's not the case here at all, because your free will includes your spiritual and personal faculty, property, and virtues. Which is a reflection. If you look at the universal table, you'll see that it's a reflection. All the way at the bottom is your individual nature, that Martinez later calls the sulfur, salt, and mercury, and Saint Martin echoes it in his 10 instructions. It was actually within these limits where these first spiritual beings had to practice their devotion, for which they had been emanated. I love that too. And it's not just to, blah, 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 but you'll know if you're part of this Elu Cohen group, and the research group is definitely into this kind of stuff. And I, as a researcher, will be presenting this commentary based on these kind of breakdowns of the information on the terms of the Elu Cohen. And I may miss something, but with the ambitious project of going through the entire book, I'm pretty sure that we're not going to miss anything. But we could, and definitely let me know in the comments the thing that pulls you, the thing that motivates you, the thing that guides you into this kind of stuff. Okay, so back to it. It was within these limits where the first spiritual beings had to practice the devotion for which they had been emanated. These first beings could not deny nor ignore the covenant which the Creator had made with them, and giving them laws, precepts, and commands, since it was upon these covenants alone that their emanation had been based. So it took me a very, very long time to learn, and I'm kind of giving you a preview, but it's a research group, so it would be appropriate to just throw everything out, but I don't want to sit here and talk for hours at one time. So we'll go through it. But the laws, precepts, and commands, that was the covenant. And the laws, precepts, and commands are later called the divine spiritual actions. But these are actions in the sense of, yes, like big, gigantic, cosmic actions. They're not actions that will just allow you to, like I said in the commentary in volume 1 of being reintegrated, which is in the works right now. This is not baking a cake actions, roll it up and throw it in a pan kind of thing. This is divine spiritual actions, which I wrote were indicative of like big bangs of causality. So these laws, plural, precepts, plural, and eternal commands, plural, are the divine spiritual actions as they can be understood by the human mind. So, I just figured 10 or 15 minutes we would talk about each section. So I'm glad that we got to talk about this ambitious project coming forward for subscribers to the Patreon. Donate to on the YouTube Elu Cohen Research Channel, and hopefully, if we get good donations, we can make these videos free. Like I said, it's ambitious, so I don't know if I'm going to completely be able to complete it. Your support will definitely be an indicator in that. But, that's section 1 of the book Adam, Before Time, the Divine Immensity. Talk to you soon.